What's up, beautiful people? This is Christian from the Successful Spiritualpreneur Podcast, and today I'm very honored to have Robin Aisha Landsong on the podcast. She's a transformational speaker, visual artist, medicine singer, and medical/health intuitive. She had two near-death experiences during the Rhodesian War in 1977 when she was 8 years old. When she was called back to life by the medicine song of a rural Zimbabwean woman, it opened her to a role as a medicine singer. Robin is able to use her intuition and to see each person's gifts and strengths. She loves to help people integrate their near-death experiences. She has helped thousands of people regain their sense of belonging, creativity, intuition, embodiment, and self-compassion. Such an honor to have such a integrated being on the show that has been up there and back and down and twice and oh my god, all the things. I'm so honored and excited and all the beauty that you bring to the planet. Thanks for being on the show, Robin.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for reaching out.
Yes. So, where do we start with such a multifaceted being? Since this is the Successful Spiritualpreneur Podcast, I like one of the things I always am interested in, like when I guess did you discover to like I'm gonna make this my thing, whatever the thing is. Um, so yeah, when did you just like I have to like I'm gonna make this my vocation, you know?
That's a great question. I would say when I got a little further in my own healing process, that I started to notice I could read people. And the more I cleared my nervous system of trauma content, the more space I had to do creativity, use my intuition. And I started checking out the stories I was hearing about people or what I was seeing energetically in their body. And I started checking it out with people and finding out that my accuracy rate was not only high, but useful. And so as you might know, for so many people, that building a business, being able to make your living this way, is that does it meet people's needs? And so lots of people have the need to be seen, understood, and especially because I do the health intuition, that so many people don't know what's wrong with their body, don't know why they're experiencing symptoms or distress. And so to help people make the connection between their emotional history and their physical history and the ways that those are inseparable is really valuable to people. So I say to people, find the thing that you love, skill build, do your training, and make sure it meets people's need before you try to make any business out of it. Because if it's just something you love, keep that as something you love and keep doing that, because it's going to make your vibrance bigger and make your living a different way. But if it's matching a need, in your community, in your culture, in your world, then it's worth trying to make a business out of it.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. And I think that is something that a lot of people struggle with in the beginning because, when you have this passion and this fire for certain things, you of course you want to share with everybody and ideally for free, like because you don't care, you're just excited about it. You just want to share it but at some point, depending on your financial situation, of course, at some point you're just like, well, I gotta, also make, some financial means end, meet some means end here. Um, but I think it's really wonderful when people like yourself, especially in the spiritual space, have kind of accomplished that, because it means that you can be in full authenticity and alignment, not only in your personal hobby, passion space, but also in your professional space, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's always a real gift, and it brings joy to my heart to see someone just like, yes, I'm living my dharma,
Yeah. And I just want to say to people too, it's not always easy and it's not always well received. And especially if you're doing online work, it just takes, letting people know over and over again, and that people have, so many choices, so much input coming in, so much stimulus, that my approach is giving a calming, soothing message, because I want my message to communicate my services and I want them to match. So I don't do big flashy videos. I don't do kind of shock value things. I deliver calming, soothing, the singing medicine. My art is calming, so that people get the congruency of what my services are in terms of helping them with their health, their emotional health, their physical health, and their creative health, that my message matches that. So I do just want to say that, there's times I get discouraged, and it's like my book just came out. So my Loving Bravely, I worked on it for 16 years.
Wow.
And so it's got my art in it. I did the audiobook. I spent, after I divorced, I had house sale money. I spent all my house sale money on making the audiobook, making the book, making a music album, Roots Drinking Rain. I took a huge risk. I was talking with my financial advisor, and I was at a certain point, I could have stopped working on my projects and, had a down payment for a house. And I was like, okay, which way do I go? Do I go for security and have this down payment on a little house? Or do I keep doing my projects and keep investing, taking a risk? And she asked me a beautiful question: which is the most life-giving risk? And my whole body just knew instantaneously that, of course, I love security. Of course, I'd love to have more stable housing, but finishing my projects, making this book happen, making my art happen, making my music album happen, that was the most life-giving risk. And I'll be honest, it's like, I spent all that money and it just released this fall, and I've kind of barely started making anything back. So it's normal and natural to have disappointment when we take risk. So I just want to say that to people. You're not doing something wrong if it doesn't just go viral right away.
Oh yeah, yeah. My wife is an author too, and we met 8 years ago. And that was the time her first book came out. She just in about a month she's gonna release her second book, but the first book I don't think has made any money till now. 8 years, and I think a book is a great way to. It's kind of like a expensive business card. It's like, look, I've written a book and therefore I am the expert for this and that. Like, it's kind of like a qualifier. Like, I can speak, I can do this, I can do that. So in a sense, yes, the book has made her money, but the book itself has not made money, which is very interesting. And, yeah, so it's kind of like, it's almost like a website. A website doesn't make you money. It's just like, but the fact that you have written a book and the fact that you have built a website, it's like kind of like these identity shifts that happen in your personal body or in your personal energetic body. That's like, you kind of put a stake in the ground. Like,
Yes.
that the book is kind of like a conclusion of a chapter or multiple chapters in your life, right? And the website is kind of like a boom. This is who I am now, and probably for the next, I don't know, year or two, because
Yeah.
stay for 2-3 years, but we evolve too. So then the website's like, this thing is outdated. This is not who I am anymore. Like, I need to I've evolved, right? And
And I just want to emphasize that the beauty of being self-employed and being in business for yourself is that you constantly get to update what you're doing based on your own development, based on, what you've grown, what you've learned, that training. And the hard part, sort of the bad news about being in business, is that you have to constantly be updating. So
yeah.
I have done several websites, and then finally I'm on WordPress, which is a good, sturdy platform that can handle a good amount of traffic and a good amount of content. So that I do recommend WordPress. Am I saying the right thing? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As compared to something small like Weebly. And, it costs money. It's like I pay my assistant, I pay my graphic designer, my web designer regularly. And that the energetics, since this is our subject, the energetics of where I'm at and what's happening in my business is such a direct correlation. And I've been in business for myself for 24 years.
Mm,
And I don't think I could ever go back because I wouldn't ever want kind of somebody else in between me and the response I'm getting from people. And I definitely love having colleagues, and I definitely love working with people. But it's like sometimes my schedule wouldn't fill up and I'd be like, wow, what's happening? And then, there'd be an emergency and I wouldn't have been able to be available for that appointment anyway. So, or
yeah.
I get sick, or so I want to say that over and over again, as established as I am, I still have lulls. I just went to Costa Rica for a month on a workaway, and it was so restful because I was so exhausted after
Mm,
publishing the book. And it was great. And my business was like, woo, boom. And
mhm,
you'd think that I was doing the right thing energetically, spiritually, filling my cup again, meditating 2 hours every day. You'd think that that would just
mhm,
energetically fill my business. But no, it's a podcast release. It's that, on somebody else's podcast, I just got 4,000 views and then my schedule is filling up some. So that's the biggest thing I want to say. If things are up and down, if you're not getting the response that you hoped for, if you're disappointed, doesn't mean you should stop. It
mm,
means that you should rest, regroup, fill your cup, and keep going. And really observe what works, what gets response, and what doesn't. And, the obvious conclusion is do more of what works. And
mm.
for me, that's podcast interviews.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think especially because you're such a vocal artist too, you know? I think um, I mean, you heal people with your voice, right? I mean, what better medium is than a podcast, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's really cool to see that. And, I always like kind of behind the scenes things. Like that's why successful spiritualpreneurs kind of like with one leg in the matrix, with one leg outside of it. That's kind of like the people that or kind of the space that I like to cultivate in this container, because I want to show people that you can live your passion and whatever it is you love. Doesn't mean that it's always easy, right? It depends where you are,
Mm-mm.
right? And like right now, like for example, like back to my wife. So she's the author of Live Your Happy, right? If you want to look it up, it's taken years, right? And to build the audience, to cultivate, and those relationships, and then if you want to, if I want to bring in a little bit more of the masculine side of like setting up the systems that need to be in place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like because let's say a very masculine word that spiritual people always like get scared of, like the sales process, right? Like you can name it what you want, but like there is a like online is the same as offline. Like when we get to know each other, it's a gradual process. Online, we jump the gun too soon, right? Give it time. Have a system that maybe nurtures that relationship and doesn't immediately jump to a sale like, hey, buy this. And like, oh, you found my song? Buy this. No. It's like I'm following you on social media. I love your songs. Let me see what else you got. And then maybe in a month or two, I'm willing to engage in a session or a downloadable. It's like I always like to instill that pattern, especially like in the spiritual space where you think it's just so feminine and flowy and you don't need any of that stuff. It's like it's gonna come to me. It's like yes,
Right.
it will come to you. Universe will always take care of you, and at the same time, systems do help.
And and if they fail, and again, having an online business, like I wasn't getting sales, and then we found out that my store had unlinked from my supplier. Just like it was all set up, it was working, and something happened. Some update happened on my website. It took out a plugin, and then all of a sudden, people couldn't buy my products. So it's very masculine. And as a very feminine person, I have to hire a lot of people to help me.
Mm,
I tend to hire a lot of women who are, get it done kind of people.
Very good. That's a good idea, you know?
Yeah, because if I did all of this myself, like I'm a manifester by human design. I'm an INFJ. I'm a creator. And I can definitely go into my masculine and think things through like, okay, we're meeting people's needs. How does the website, how does my social media meet people's needs? Just like you're saying, one of my teachers, Lisa Nichols, says, 3 times giving something without any request. And then the fourth time on social media, you can make a soft request. And she says a soft request by, you're not saying like, buy this. You're saying, if you know somebody who needs to be sung to, needs to have their soul acknowledged by receiving this singing medicine, if you could please let them know. Because what you want to do is allow people to identify themselves as your customer. You don't want to get in their face and say, you are my customer. You want to
Mm.
say, here's the need I'm meeting. Is this match your need? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe there's somebody who doesn't want spiritual growth. They're happy eating McDonald's and being numb. That's not my customer. That's not my client. And to try and market to them would be a big waste of my time. My people are people who maybe don't know how to heal, but they want to heal, or
Mm.
people who are already in their healing process and need support going to the next step. My people are practitioners who need self-care, self-maintenance so that they can do their work in a good way. My people are somebody who's just had a revelation of like, oh my gosh, I had childhood trauma and I wasn't aware of it. I've already been doing my spiritual practice, but now how do I attend to my nervous system, to my body, to my organ health, and match my physical and my spiritual process together?
Mm.
Because sometimes people can be far along in their spiritual process, but doing a spiritual bypass, and they haven't sort of brought up the back end of their nervous system trauma. So those are my people. And to,
Mm.
market to somebody who's super mainstream America, who is invested in being numb, doesn't want change, then that's a waste of my time.
Yeah.
So, and a waste of my resources. Cause, there's only so many hours in the day. Like right now I'm working on a grant that's super exciting. And
Mhm.
it's going to be a project about love, and that my life was saved by, there's actually a scientific term called othermothering, when somebody who's not the biological mother extends nurturing, extends care. And I'm going to use that as a lead in to go ahead and sing. So
Mhm.
for everybody who didn't have the bonding that they needed with their primary caregiver, usually their mother, I'm going to sing to that. Shone am here, I am no way, I am I am whole. He, oh, am he, oh, oh, me, oh, And so settling into our self-care practices. I was just talking with somebody yesterday who was really struggling with feeling suicidal. And he was talking about trying to get to self-love and increase his self-love. And I said, why don't you set that aside and just focus on self-care? Self-love is a natural byproduct of our self-care. And we can't really get to self-love by ourselves. So, he was talking about like, well, I'm hanging out by myself, my nervous system not getting any kind of care, touch, and I'm just meditating and trying to get to self-love. And I was like, well, I don't know. How's that working for you? And he's like, not very well. I'm suicidal. And so focusing on acts of self-care. So I'm going to name a couple of them. Food. What we put in our body as an act of self-love nourishes our brain out of depression, out of self-hatred. When we're feeding ourselves soda and Cheetos and sugar, the chances of getting to self-acceptance, self-kindness are lowered. So taking the time to feed ourselves whole food, vegetables, organic meats, organic products that aren't going to give ourselves a bunch of food dye that are going to send our brain into crazy places. Lowering our sugar is the most spiritual thing you can do. I've eaten no sugar for 12 years and I'm committed to sugar-free for the rest of my life because I love my divine assignment. I love the people I serve. And the best way for me to do that is to not eat sugar. I don't even eat coconut sugar. I don't eat food dye. I don't eat wheat. I generally don't eat dairy because I love showing up in my divine purpose. So I just want to say that if you are serious about your spiritual practice, get serious about how you feed yourself whole food. And the details don't matter so much to me as long as you spend time at home cooking. Learn from others. There's incredible videos. If you don't know how to cook, watch all the incredible videos. That's going to be one of my next things is a cooking show. That's going to be super fun. I'm going to have puppets and silliness and play because a bunch of us grew up in a lot of stress at the dinner table, stress in the kitchen, stress when we were putting food in our mouths. Sometimes, I work with a lot of people who were literally assaulted at the dinner table. What does that do to our digestion if we
Wow.
were eating and we were unsafe? If we were swallowing the tension that was in the room?
Mm.
So again, don't focus on self-love, focus on self-care and focus on that we need each other. This grant I'm working on is through research about love. And so I'm going to do, if I get the grant, I'll do another project on love. And of course, my book is called Loving Bravely because my
Mm.
life was saved when a woman who wasn't of my race, wasn't of my culture, I wasn't even of her country, she other-mothered me because in her culture, if a child needs care, you give it. If a child needs belonging, you include. And so welcoming somebody else in who's outside of your primary circle of defined people. So somebody of another race, somebody of another culture, somebody who's an immigrant, welcoming them into your circle of care is spiritual practice, is spiritual courage, is an act of care and changes the world. So when we're congruent in our lives, then we bring that to our offering in the world. And again, doesn't mean it's received right away. And we just have to remind people over and over again. And I'm just going to give another example. I started to draw. I do lots of drawings. This behind me is a towel of my art with it, and I put it in Photoshop, made it into a really great vertical file, and put it on a towel. Here is an astrological calendar. It took me 2 years to draw all these astrological signs. So,
Wow.
so each month, here's Aries. That one's one of my favorite. And so, I did the best I could, me and my assistant, but I didn't get it out till November. So the sales were like, I don't know, I think I've sold like 25 of them. That's okay. I still have all the files. I'm going to try and find a larger company than just my website, and have it printed more commercially. So just like you're saying, like your wife's book, 8 years, the best thing that I've been advised on is publish a second book. So I'm already working on my second book. So just keep going and try not to take it personally. If, I just spent like 3 hours on doing a video of some of my best singing medicine that I did in the jungle while I was in Costa Rica. I'm not a very good video editor. I'm a good recorder, but I'm not a very good actual editor. And because it didn't start out quite the right way, it has less views than something I did in like 20 minutes, of just me taking a walk and inhale, like that gets more views than this thing I worked on for 3 hours. So try not to take it personally when something doesn't take off, but just keep consistent, keep posting, keep loving people through social media. And again, just like you're saying, my teacher said, don't ask too frequently. I've looked on some other author's site and they're just saying, buy my book, buy my book. And you've got to deliver content. You've got to deliver love because that's what people need. And that's
Mm.
what people is going to build trust in their nervous system. So they're willing to spend their precious income on something that you have to offer. So I have free offerings. I have $18 classes as an entry point. And then it goes on up. Then you can be in a 5-person group for right now, it costs $95. Then you can have an individual session with me for $140. So you have a tier of entry place free, low cost, medium, higher, and then you can come to a retreat with me, or you can buy my music album or my book or my art. So lots of entry points that meet the person where they are and what their needs are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really beautiful that you said that because question in the back of my mind was like, what are the products and services that you offer and that people can take you up on, and you've beautifully outlined. And I think one of the interesting observations that is coming to me is, sometimes we talk more about business, sometimes we talk more about spirituality in this podcast, which is a nice little balance. And one of the observations I made in a podcast like 4 weeks ago was that personal, like the healing, like the trauma work, the shadow work, the personal development, the spirituality, the work on oneself is the feminine side of strategy,
Oh,
right?
that's beautifully said. I like that. I like to say, like, once, when I get to a session, sessions are easy for me to give because I've done 35 years of trauma healing work.
Mm,
So when I'm sitting with somebody who's, at the beginning, middle, or more advanced stage of their trauma recovery, it's easy for me.
hmm
And there's times where it's like I get affected. Like, I think there was a week where I was doing some medium readings and I had people who, like, their relative had just been murdered. And,
mm,
that was hard. That was definitely hard. I had 2 in 1 week. But when it comes to, I get joyful when people drop into their pain because that means we're a breath away from more authenticity. That we need more people who are embodied, who have
mm,
movement, who have sensation. Because I'll tell you what one of my movement teachers said. When you can't feel your body, when you can't feel sensation and you're numb, you can't feel your yes and your no in your body.
mm,
Then when you have to make a decision, you go outside of yourself, you go outside of your own power and authority, and you look for the answer outside of yourself in another authority. So the
mm,
beauty of dance, movement, breath work, yoga, Tai Chi is getting home to sensation so you can get out of self-criticism as a way to motivate yourself.
mm,
And so this is my big teaching, is that self-criticism, yelling at yourself to motivate yourself, is trauma response, and it keeps post-traumatic stress going. Because if it's somebody outside of you or yourself yelling at yourself, it keeps the amygdala in the brain activated, and then we're in trauma response. And
mm,
then guess what? Our decision making gets narrowed down and our self-beretment gets high. So like I said, I just went to Costa Rica and I worked with my host And we were kind of doing purpose coaching. I was giving her a craniosacral therapy session every day, which was awesome. I'd never done that before. And at a certain point, I said, so is your clarity around what you want to do increasing? And she said, yes, because my self-beretment is going down from receiving all these sessions. And she said, I couldn't get clear about what my work is in the world when I was so busy yelling at myself. And the research from, and I get this from Krista Neff, who's a teacher on self-compassion, she talks about that self-beretment literally lowers our IQ, lowers our presence of emotional intelligence, and we get self-focused in not a good way, in the kind of a more of a self-centered way. When we're busy inventorying what's so wrong with me, our recognizing opportunity gets narrow. When we can pause and say, it's difficult to have your own business. It's hard to be self-employed. There's a lot of things that people can pay attention to besides the video I just posted. And so when we can get compassionate that way, shift from like, whatever we say about ourselves if we don't get enough views, over to like, it's okay. That those 10 people that were completely moved by what I had to offer, that's my life's work. When we can shift over to self-kindness, spaciousness within ourselves, literally our emotional IQ gets bigger and we can see opportunity. And so I'm going to give an example with that. This grant that I'm working on, every now and again, I'm like, oh my God, there's probably more qualified people than me. There's people who have more credentials than me because I have a bachelor's. I don't have a master's. I do energetically and spiritually have a PhD, but in this material world, I don't have a master's or a PhD. And so, and there's times where I have been passed up with somebody with more credentials, so I did my work and I got a Stanford certificate in compassion so that I can say, associate Stanford right with my name. And so years ago, I might have quit. I might not have told myself I can apply to this, but you know what? I finished my book. I did my audiobook. I feel kind of badass of just that audiobook was 2 years of work. My music album, Roots Drinking Rain, was 3 years of work. I trust my perseverance. I trust my commitment to my divine assignment. And so that's what I'm getting across in this grant application is, one, I have tons of training, tons of research. I love science. And I am perfect for this grant. They get to decide whether they agree with that or not. But while I'm sitting in the chair, putting in the hours to write my project narrative, do my budget, and for the parts I don't know how to do well, I ask for help. I don't know how to write a movie budget, a film budget, so I researched. So I just reached out to people and said, can you look over my budget proposal? Because I'm not very experienced at this. So ask for help. Is healthy co-regulation. It is a healthy nervous system response to learning something new.
Yeah, absolutely. And also at this point, I want to bring up the whole AI ChatGPT thing because it's helped me so much sometimes to assess certain, proposals or quotes for the clients. It's like they write you all this thing and, you sometimes need to read in between the lines or you don't know all the details. And sometimes, ChatGPT has a little bit more insight on certain things that you just don't. So I think it's a wonderful tool, and just like any technology, it's neutral. It's just like how we use it, right? So yeah, and then just tying back the loop with personal, the inner work is the feminine side of strategy. I think on that side, it's exactly what you said. Like if you do the inner work, you're able to your nervous system is able to support that next level of growth, right? And when it comes to strategy, not that that's a big topic, but if you ever have done strategy for yourself or goal setting, it's like you come up with this big vision or like this big thing and you execute maybe 5% of it, right? That's because it's so big that your nervous system, and you get scared. Just looking at it, like, yes, your vision is big, but then you haven't done the inner work or the limiting beliefs that come in throughout the process, where it's like, I'm going to create content, I'm going to do this, I'm going to have a website, I'm going to run an online shop. It's like, okay, great vision, but you stop at just registering a domain. You know what I mean? Because, like, yeah, I have the domain, great, but now it's the website building. Ooh, gotta first write the copy. Get the text. Okay, have the copy, but then the design. Okay, I'm gonna say stop for another 6 months. So it's like, can your nervous system, your inner work, your inner worthiness, this your self care, like, can all these things that you do in your life support what you're actually building? And I think that is where your work is it just does wonders, because a lot of people, including myself, we don't even know all the stuff we have in the back closet, from my childhood that I don't even remember, because I've just pushed it down in my unconscious, so it's really, really cool to have you on, and really just exemplify this here in the podcast. And we have about 5 minutes left on the show, so I would love for you to maybe sing another time. I would love
Oh,
this so much.
yeah.
I mean, if you have
Yeah.
anything that inspires you, and I think, again, like, the intention for this podcast and this episode is just to, like, inspire people to, like, get out there. Like, their message is their medicine. Like, everyone has this gift of, like, uniqueness and genius and creativity and your own path. Like, put it out there, like, step by step. You don't need to start with the automated content system and this and that. Just put yourself out there.
hmm And I really appreciate what you're saying, because it takes years. Like the website I have right now, it's gorgeous, and it is thousands of dollars and hours and layers and years. So just keep putting time into it. And I can't emphasize enough just what you said about, I have a chart, and I put sticky notes on it, and I break down each task. And I have a project manager that I meet with for free through like a women's business. I have an assistant. I call her when I'm scared and say, so I need to do this next step and I don't know how. And then she'll help me. Or I'll call somebody who knows more than me. So that's the key, is get help on the parts that you suck at.
Yeah.
So, I know I'm a super feminine person, and I can do strategy, and I commit to that. So let me go ahead and sing. I'm going to sing to you, and then I'm going to pause for a second, and then I'm going to sing to the gentleman, the young man I worked with yesterday who was struggling with not wanting to be here on the planet. First, I'm going to cancel echolocation. Shoya hi ayam ne yamai shamayam ha ayo we heyo we heyo I am oyo shayo showo I am ayo Iyamaye, I am, oh, hey, yo, me.
Thank you. I was
Mhm.
bringing this little ally into the mix,
Yes.
little green tourmaline,
Yeah.
to ground the energy for everyone listening to this and watching this, because it's such an honor, the sacred work that the divine feminine does on this planet, and that has been pushed down for quite a while now,
Just a
but
little bit.
yeah. So thanks for everything you do. Thanks for showing up, and thanks for creating the new earth with us.
Yeah. Yeah. And blessings to each person listening to include your fear and do it anyway.
A hold to that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Robin.
Thank you.